Hector is with Google. He's head of human-centered innovation and strategy. He currently leads design for Google Search and Assistant products. Hector enjoys the ups and downs of life in sunny California. He's lived in 6 countries and 11 cities, always refining his routine. A designer by heart, Hector is driven by finding potential in everything and everyone and translating that potential into making our lives just a bit better. He's fascinated by a better future in which technology and people understand and interact with each other easily. So please give a warm welcome to Hector.
It's best practice to start off a talk on a negative note. So I'll let you think for a second. What's your worst restaurant experience ever? Let me guess, it probably wasn't the food, was it? Maybe the waiters ignored you or screwed up your order. Maybe it was too noisy to carry a conversation. If you spend enough time like me on Google Maps or TripAdvisor looking for new restaurants, you'll see bad restaurant experiences are usually about poor ambience. Let me tell you about my worst restaurant experience ever. I remember I went to a futuristic sushi restaurant in Tokyo. You ordered sushi on a tablet and I watched it zoom over on something that looked like a sushi bullet train. It was definitely cool and novel, but the lack of ambience made it horrible. The restaurant had a cold and impersonal feel to it. It was mechanical and disconnected in a way that felt dystopian. None of the other restaurant guests were talking to each other. You couldn't see any sushi chefs or even hear any shouting coming from the kitchen. All you could hear was the muffled munching of guests mindlessly staring at their phones. The shiny new technology that replaced human interactions was really just a veneer for a highly efficient feeding pin for humans. I like to contrast that with the recent dining experience in my favorite Spanish restaurant in the Bay Area. The hostess, Paula, greeted me at the door. "Hola, Hector. Bienvenido de nuevo," and complimented me on my new badass pink suit. She brought me up to the table with a clear view because she knows how much my wife loves seeing everything happening around her. Within seconds, the waiter's Begonia brought me my favorite gin and tonic, carefully crafted with extra juniper berries, something that I always want more of. That gesture really made me feel like a regular, or somebody who belongs. I could go on and on. I felt like I was the center of a symphony conducted just for me. Every interaction was seamlessly orchestrated. Every gesture and recommendation was personal, and every handoff was intuitive and graceful. This created a warm, human ambience. The reason I like this restaurant so much is exactly the same reason why I love my work. As head of human-centered innovation and strategy for Google, it's my job to bring that warmth and seamlessness of human interactions to technology. It's not an easy job because there's so much pressure in the tech industry and even at Google to engineer products like the sushi bullet train restaurant, something that is optimized for velocity and scale, but not something that is optimized for feelings and atmosphere. There are plenty of spaces where I think we can get better at bringing more warmth and seamlessness into product experiences. But the place where I see the biggest room for shaping a more human-centric world is in the ambient computing space. Ambient computing needs more human ambience. So, what is ambient computing anyway? It describes a future world in where we finally realize an aspirational design principle. The best interface is no interface at all. This is a profound paradigm shift. No longer do you have to interact with interfaces like screens, or keyboards, or mouses. Instead, you interact naturally with a multitude of invisible smart devices subtly embedded in your surrounding environment. The technology continuously monitors and satisfies your needs, so it can proactively act on your behalf. Wow, this sounds like science fiction, right? Well, that's because this vision used to be science fiction. Remember Jarvis from Iron Man? For the longest time, the closest we came to anything to this was these motion sensor power doors in supermarkets. You know, the ones you run through as a kid and pretend you open them like a Jedi? But recently, a confluence of several promising technologies has accelerated the development of ambient computing. On one hand, we've seen a lot of innovations in the areas of voice recognition, haptics, and so on. All technologies that are building blocks of ambient technology. On the other hand, we're seeing rapid advancements in artificial intelligence and machine learning. Think of it as the organizing power you need to orchestrate all the devices. The vision of ambient computing as portrayed in films and fiction seems closer than ever. Just not so fast. There's still many challenges and open questions. Most of the industry is focused on the feasibility of whatever individual piece of their vision they're working on. For example, linguists. They're trying to solve for natural language understanding so computers can better understand your intent and context. Then we have the nanotechnologists that are trying to figure out how to make microprocessors even smaller so they can integrate it even in more stuff. Then we have a relatively smaller group of people are focused on viability. That is, trying to figure out how to make ambient technology work for the market. If an ambient computing performs an action on your behalf without asking and breaks something, who's responsible? You? The device manufacturer? The AI? All of the above? All of these are very important questions, but so much attention is paid to feasibility and viability that people ignore the third element of innovation: desirability. Is the vision of ambient computing something desirable? Is there something people really want and can get excited about? Today, I'd like to share with you a few provocations of what I think we need to do a little bit different to make ambient computing more desirable for people. I'd like to start off our discussion about desirability by asking you to imagine an amazing, expensive home. Most of the times, they're poorly decorated, right? That is, because people just buy a bunch of crap just because they can afford to. Or because they thought each individual item looked cool, but didn't consider how it fit together with the other stuff in the house. Or what higher order purpose they should serve, like serenity or focus. The result is clutter, noise, and wastefulness. Yeah, right now, the smart industry is very noisy. In the past years, the major players in the industry have released so many devices just because they can or because they look cool, but they haven't thought about what higher order purpose they should be serving. For instance, you can buy a smart cooking pan that will tell you when your food is burning, just in case you can smell it. Or you can buy a smart toilet for just $8,000 and use your voice to flush it. While it's remarkable they managed to build all this stuff, let's be honest, who the hell needs all that crap? No pun intended. Instead, let's get a little smarter about what smart technology we're building. Let's focus less on short-term feasibility and more on sustainable desirability. Let's consider what real problems we'd like to solve, such as helping people who suffer from Alzheimer's live at home all alone. Or let's help older people now stuck at home feel less alone. Let's figure out what we want to solve, what we want to solve for, and let's build the products to make it happen. Now, don't get me wrong, I love fancy gadgets, and I always have. I remember when I was a kid, I dreamt of living in a Jetsons home full of gadgets. And a few years ago, when many of these gadgets started to become cheaper and hit the market, the future seemed like it could finally arrive. So I bought everything I could get my hands on. I bought smart light bulbs, smart toasters, smart plugs, etc. If my house was a playhouse, then these gadgets were my toys. But sadly, the toys didn't want to place nicely together. Hell, they even talk to each other. I realized each new device was just one more damn thing I needed to set up and command separately. None of the devices built off each other to create that seamless and magical Jetson experience I was looking for. Why is that? This is because the industry keeps putting out new cool devices but doesn't consider, or for that matter, have any incentives to consider, how to connect the devices together. The result is you have additions but not augmentations or synergistic value. Instead, the industry should consider the use cases and end-to-end journeys that each device plays a role in. Imagine your alarm clock, window blinds, and coffee machine were all connected. When your alarm sounds in the morning, the blinds automatically open and the sun gently wakes you up. And the espresso machine starts whistling and the smell of coffee lures you out of bed. How cool is that? The thing is, this future is already here. It's just not connected. The 3 smart devices needed to make this happen already exist and are even reasonably priced, but they're just not connected in a way that lets them create synergies or produce a desirable experience that's greater than the sum of the individual parts. Wouldn't it be great, instead of each manufacturer doing its own thing, they work together to connect all these products already out there to produce an amazing experience? For me, the most amazing experiences are the ones where I don't really notice all the work happening in the background to make me happy. For example, I used to spend a lot of time in New York for work. The hotel I always stayed felt so warm and homely. Every time I walked into the room, it felt like I had never left. The temperature was always set to a perfect 22 degrees Celsius. The bed sheets were a little bit on top, just like I liked them, etc. The hotel staff had taken the time to get to know me and to note my little preferences and habits to make me feel more at home. This was also one of the reasons why I felt comfortable trusting the concierge to make dinner reservations for me. That's not something I trust any random hotel concierge with. How the hell they could ever predict what or where I want to eat? They're eager to make suggestions, but I don't want their suggestions because they don't know me. Sometimes it feels like the industry is trying to build the digital equivalent of an overly eager concierge in an anonymous chain hotel. You have products that supposedly predict what you want before you even know you want it. You have products that make helpful suggestions for things you didn't even know you needed help with. And products that offer to do things for you that you didn't even know you wanted done. But these products don't invest the time into getting to know you and building a relationship with you, so you will be open to those predictions and services. I share some of this blame. I was one of the founders of Google Now, a search app that came many years before the Google Assistant, and basically will predict what you might be interested based on your search habits, location, etc., and give you a bunch of proactive suggestions, like where to go to eat or have a drink. And in the end, most people stopped paying attention to these suggestions because they kind of already knew what I wanted to do. That's because, like it or not, we are so predictable. We all have our routines and patterns and rarely do truly new things. Just think about it. What do you do when you walk into a new hotel room? Maybe adjust the thermostat a little bit, change the TV station, set a bath. The variables might change, but your preferences are constant. Wouldn't it be so much more satisfying if you can check into a random hotel and all the electronics automatically adjust themselves to what you would always like? I mean, it doesn't need to be predictive and proactive like in the movies. The thermostat doesn't need to lower the temperature because you're feeling anxious about the presentation you're giving. Or the TV doesn't need to put a soothing show just because you have a horrible taxi ride. In the beginning, just let technology subtly facilitate the same old things in new environments. I also recognize that technology facilitating the same old things doesn't always make you feel warm at home. The way restaurants have been adapting to the pandemic is a great example. When you sit down at a table, you often see these laminated instructions that explain how to use your phone to scan a QR code, view a menu, tap your order, send directly to the kitchen, all without ever having to speak to anyone. There's virtually no human-to-human interaction whatsoever, which is a great way to eliminate germs. So great. But unfortunately, it's also a great way to eliminate the warmth and ambience of eating in a restaurant because these automatic ordering systems are so impersonal and inflexible. Unlike having a waiter, now you can't make any changes other than what they thought of. So now I cannot get my extra salsa and everything. You won't hear personal recommendations or discover the waiter's hidden tips. So you stick to the same old things you always order. Essentially, you are constrained to whatever the restaurant has entered or has been able to enter into their system. The result? It's a scene not much different than the one in my Tokyo sushi restaurant. Everyone sitting around in silence, staring at their phones, and eating like in a feeding pen. For me, this is just another manifestation of how the tech industry has been engineering products. The tech operates within the predefined parameters of the creator and not the consumer, because the devices haven't been engineered to absorb these new signals. My Nest thermostat can automatically regulate my house temperature according to the time of the day and even the weather outside, because these are all the main use cases researchers and engineers accounted for during the product development cycle. But my Nest won't make the house any colder when I turn on a winter movie like Frozen to make my daughter snuggle up to me while we watch it. I might be the first person to have thought of such a cool use case. But as things stand, the smart device can't do anything with my idea because its systems are so deterministically constrained. That's why we need to build more flexibility into our smart devices so that all the smart people out there, all of you, not just the designers and the engineers, can help steer their development. Flexibility, the openness for new signals, the willingness to do things differently, can of course lead to diversions from our intended goals. Think about the last time you were traveling somewhere. I know, it's been a while, right? And you had a destination in mind. You probably just used your smartphone navigating system. I might also prefer Google Maps to asking people for direction if it only allowed for serendipity and surprises. Right now, Maps just gives you the quickest and most efficient route from A to B. It never suggests the most desirable route. Maybe that's longer but more scenic. Or maybe it's a road that goes past a lake where cute little dogs cross the road. If anything, Maps will steer you away from those dogs because they cause traffic delays. Now, if it weren't for the pandemic, I'd still be asking people for directions. Over the last 20 years, I live in 9 different countries and I always jumped at every opportunity to ask somebody for directions, even if I knew where I was going. Sometimes it was just because I felt lonely. I was looking for an excuse to have some brief human interaction. Other times, I just used this opportunity to practice the local language on some native speakers. But most of the time, I was trying to discover some things I wouldn't have seen on a map. This is the same situation with smart devices. They optimize for efficiency, but never for joy and happy accidents. Think about it. Your smart sprinkler would always go off at time of the day to minimize evaporation and save you money on water. But the sprinkler, when optimized for the times of the day so you can see a beautiful rainbow in the mist, or slightly more mischievously, the sprinkler won't start spraying water when your neighbor's dog is trying to crap on your lawn. If we design ambient technology to be purely utilitarian and efficiency focused, those happy accidents will be considered noise and optimized out of the equation. Instead, we need to design ambient technology to allow for serendipity and surprises. In my eyes, these are just a few things that will make ambient computing work. Not necessarily technically or economically, but work for the people that technology is meant to serve. But these suggestions will only take us so far unless we align on what we mean by ambient computing. More often than not, the word ambient is interpreted as surrounding or all-encompassing. You can see this in Hollywood films like Minority Report or Blade Runner, in where every scene is full of life-size holograms, flashing screens, and beeping devices. These films paint a future where tech does amazing things for people. But does anybody stop to think, how does this tech actually make the people feel? I mean, really, how many of you want to live in a world where technology is constantly whirling around your face? Instead, we need to lean more into the other meaning of ambient, which is creating a peaceful and relaxed atmosphere. You know, like the ambient light in your bedroom that you hardly notice, but it makes you feel all warm and cozy. Humans have a fundamental desire for the warmth and seamlessness that can get from interacting with each other. In my eyes, technology should aspire to support that, and if possible, even enhance the warmth and seamlessness of those interactions. And to support this human warmth, that technology needs to be tepid. That means neither hot nor cold, just room temperature. Think of a swimming pool that you step in and completely forget you're even water because it's perfectly in sync with your body temperature. When you're in that pool, you can concentrate on just swimming or drink a cocktail and enjoy the sunset with people around you. Because for me, this is how ambient technology should be. It should blend in seamlessly into the background, but subtly enhance people's relationship with other people and the natural world around them. In short, technology should be bland and boring, not striking and memorable. Because it's ultimately human beings, not technology, who give the world its warmth and ambience. Thank you.